Hi, everybody. My name is Ryan Fenderson, and I am an instructor at the International Institute for Restorative Practices. I know you've recently learned about the psychology of affect and the work of Sylvan Tompkins and the work of Donald Nathanson around shame, and then particularly the work of John Braithwaite with reintegrative shame. So I want to pick up from there and talk about some more work by Sylvan Tompkins and how we can take what we learned in those and move forward in a way that is best. And this is what is called the central blueprint. The central blueprint, this is the idea that individuals are healthiest and at their best when they do these things, when they maximize their positive affect, when they spend as much time as possible living in their positives, minimize negative affect. Again, we're not minimizing negative behavior. We're minimizing the amount of time and effort, really, that is spent living in our negatives. And the only way out of that is to minimize our inhibition around affect. In essence, talking about our feelings, talking about what is impacting us, why it's impacting us negatively, explore that, and do that work to get ourselves back into the positive affect. And again, doing as much of those above 3 as possible. Well, then there's the work of Vic Kelly, where we apply that to our relationships, both our interpersonal relationships and our intimate relationships. So that's when two people agree to maximize and then mutualize all of the positive affect, minimize and mutualize negative affect, and then minimize and mutualize our inhibition around affect. Our inhibition really about talking about our feelings with one another. Again, this is not to minimize negative behavior that is harmful or impactful to the relationship, but to minimize the amount of time spent in that negative affect by processing our way through, by talking about our feelings. And again, doing as much of those above 3 as possible. Well, then we can take it one step further and apply it to a community, a group of people. Community is when multiple people agree to maximize and mutualize all of the positives of both the individuals and the collective, minimize and mutualize the negative affects of the individuals and the collective, and minimize and mutualize our inhibition around talking about our affect, talking about what events have happened that have impacted us positively, impacted us negatively, and what we need to do to address them. Again, doing as much of those above 3 as possible. Well, when we begin to apply that both individually, interpersonally, and within a larger community, a series of restorative practices are going to begin to emerge. And these are going to be bringing in all of the vocabulary that we've talked about with the social discipline window, the idea that we want to work with people instead of doing things to them. It's going to focus on having reintegrative shame, where people are given the space to make a mistake, but also given the opportunity to work through that mistake and improve in the future. So this is the restorative practices continuum. Again, 80% of the time trying to use these elements proactively, 20% of the time using them responsively. And they're on a continuum from informal to formal. The more formal, the more people are involved, the more planning is required, the more time it will take. And in the end, the process will also feel significantly more complete. So let's focus in at these one at a time. So the affective statements, these are statements about our affect, about our emotional response. These aren't just opportunities for us to tell somebody that their behavior has made us angry. These are opportunities for us to tell people that their behavior has made us happy, maybe even made us proud. For instance, in a classroom, we could tell a kid or a student doing work, we could say, "Good job." Or we could tell them, "I've noticed how hard you've been working and how difficult this material was for you last week. And I see that you're really beginning to excel at it. And I'm proud of the hard work that you have put in. How does that make you feel?" Again, it's just opening up a conversation that is so much more substantive and so much more about building positive relationships in a healthy community than that simple "good job." So a good affective statement is an "I feel" statement. I feel happy. I feel sad. I feel proud. I feel angry. Okay? An affective question. These are sometimes called, or often called, the restorative questions. These are questions such as asking somebody who has done wrong, what happened? What were you thinking at the time? What have you thought about since? Who's been affected or impacted by what you have done, and what can you do to make that right? Also asking those who have been harmed, what did you think when you realized what had happened? How has this affected you? What has been the most difficult part for you? What do you need for things to be made right? But affective questions are not limited to those restorative questions. Affective questions can simply be any question that is designed to generate an emotional response. It's an open-ended question. They deal very effectively with the past, the present, and the future, and really model a tremendous way to approach any conflict or difficulty that arise. One question that is noticeably missing in the restorative questions anyway is the question of why. Why did you do that thing? We try to avoid using the question why, as it can generate a defensive response. And quite often, they don't know. Students don't know why they did what they did. It was likely a shame response, and it needs processed. It needs dealt with in a more affective way. Then there's the small impromptu conversation. This is where you can address conflict between two peers, and you're talking to those two students, or you're talking to a colleague, and you'll find yourself using affective questions, affective statements. These are tools in your bag that come with you all along the way. And now you're just dealing with the people most affected by whatever it is that is happening. And you're able to use affective statements and affective questions to open up a healthy dialogue to really explore what is happening for each side and allow space for it to be resolved in a new and different way. And then there's the circle. The circle is a great way for proactively building community in the classroom. It is on the formal end of this continuum because it does require planning and time and more people. We never have good circle by accident, and it is not the first response that we should think of for dealing with conflict. While it is a tremendous tool to build community in the classroom, it should not be thought of as the go-to thing to address conflict, especially if that conflict is between a couple of individuals and not the entire class. And then there's the formal conference. There are two types of formal conference. There is what is called the restorative conference, or the restorative justice conference. And then there's what is called the family group decision making. So a formal restorative conference is usually held in the wake of a serious harm that has been done. Oftentimes it is done in a criminal setting. A crime has occurred. We have a clear incident of harm, and both the person who has done the harm and those who were harmed, through a lot of preparation and through a lot of work by a facilitator, are brought together. And they're brought together with supports, and everybody is allowed the opportunity to openly talk about what has happened while creating a plan to make it right. And then a family group decision making. This is where a family really is tasked with the primary responsibility of developing and creating the plan for whatever it is that is impacting the family. I have seen this used with schools, asking families to develop a plan for chronic truancy. I've seen these used in placement levels of care, changes of placement for a child. Coming out of a system or going into a system. I've also seen these used with the care of the elderly, where the family really needs to get together and decide what is the best plan and what everybody can contribute to make that happen for their family in the best way possible. This is a pretty significant reframe that allows us as the professionals to remain the professionals in the resources available to help, and asks that a family really take control of the decisions that affect them, as they are the experts in their family, and we are not. So thank you for your time. I trust that you find these helpful, and I hope you have a good day. Thanks.